Jim Umhoeffer, the former president of the Sinclair Lewis Foundation and the founder of the Sinclair Lewis Writers Conference. Tomorrow is our 35th annual Writers Conference.
Hi, I'm Brenda Hudson. I'm an expressive writer, and writing has kind of been the common thread throughout my crazy career, which has involved journalism, corporate communications, teaching academic writing, and I just really believe in the power of telling our stories.
Hello, I'm Lillie Gardner from St. Paul. I'm a screenwriter and also written for podcasts and a bunch of different things, but also write personal essays. I read on a reading panel for a literary magazine, and also write script coverage. So every week I read a lot of screenplays and a lot of essays and have to judge like what makes something strong and what needs more work. But yeah, excited to be here.
Julie?
Hi, I'm Julie Pfitzinger. It's nice to be here. I am an managing editor for a digital publication based at Twin Cities Public Television in St. Paul. I've been a writer for many years. I've been an editor for many years too. I love both things equally. Love to read, and so I'm happy to spend time with you all today.
My name is Danny Klecko. I live in Minneapolis. I'm master bread baker. I've been doing that for a long time, but I'm also a poet, award-winning poet. I'm a big deal. I write for the New York Times, and I've got all kinds of wonderful books, but I'm kind of happy to be here because it was just this long ago when I was sitting in your chair, so ask smart questions. Jim, back to you.
Well, based on your last comment, Klecko, why should these kids learn to be a good writer in school even if they don't want to be an author?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, myself, I never even graduated from high school. I would suggest that you do, but I never did. And I've flourished through this world because I learned how to communicate. And communication is everything. There's people who are 50 times smarter than me that make less money because they don't know how to communicate. When you learn how to communicate, you also make better choices. When you learn how to communicate, you put yourself with other people who are successful. You know, what's the old adage? If you want to go someplace, surround yourself with people who know how to get there. Thank you.
Julie, I'd like you to comment on that a little bit too from your editorial and publishing experience.
Yeah, I would say writing is critical, you know, and I think that being able to be a storyteller, whatever kind of stories that you're telling, whether you're writing a marketing proposal, whether you're writing for a magazine, it doesn't matter. I think the written word has always been powerful, will continue to be so. And I know obviously we're all in a very new space with social media, and the way we write is different, but at the end of the day, telling stories, communicating efficiently, being able to connect to other people, maybe that's the key for me. Writing is connection. No matter what kind of writing you're doing, it's connection.
Lillie, how about you? You've got music and writing background.
Yeah, I do have also a background as a classical pianist. So I agree with everything that was just said. I think communication is everything, and having that skill, no matter what you are doing, is always going to serve you. And also the connection. So I think art in general, whether you're writing or doing any other kind of art or creative pursuit, like, to me, like, that's what it's all about. Like, we go to art to deal with life and connect with other people over things in life that are confusing or hard or really good or complicated and all of those things. And I think getting to be part of that conversation is super exciting because in art, we get to talk about a lot of things that in like normal and polite society, we don't always share or dig into. And then I would say too, I'm a creative nonfiction writer, I think like journaling is so important. So I also think writing for your own self is key. And for me, writing is often how I know what I'm thinking, right? And I'm not the first writer who has said that. But being able to just like put pen to page or type on a computer or wherever you're doing, or writing my notes app a lot on my phone, but that can help really clarify for myself how I'm feeling about something or how I'm experiencing something in a way that
for writing and expressing yourself. I got to see a little bit of the English class that you guys are doing on video. So it doesn't have to be all words, as you guys know, in this social media age. There's lots of ways to tell your stories. And I would just say, please tell your stories, whether you ever are worried about publishing or not, or making money from it as part of your job. I just really want to, just agree with Lillie about journaling and telling your stories for your own sake as well. It can be life-giving. And like I said before, I do really believe that our stories matter and our stories can be expressed in so many different ways. And so don't worry about having to make money off of it or publishing it. Just do it for yourself as well.
Well, now that we've had a chance to listen to the panelists talk, let's take a little break. Is there anybody that has a question that might not be on the sheet here? Otherwise, there are a lot of good questions here, but I want to give people a chance if you have a question. Yes?
How do you guys go about writing non-traditional dialogue? I know we talked about dialogue with her, but I'm wondering how you guys would go about doing that.
You say non-traditional dialogue?
Non-traditional dialogue.
Okay. I'll let you start, Lillie.
Can you say what you mean by that?
So I am writing a story that takes place in the 1940s during World War II, and it's dialogue between, it's given in letters, like letters written between two characters. So they're not traditionally talking to themselves in a conversation, but it's kind of presented in a way that they're having a conversation. So I feel like I've been struggling with making it sound right and not forced, so to say.
Yeah, so specifically that it's a kind of dialogue that's between letters, right? So the words of the letters. I think that you can still apply a lot of the same things that you would if you had two characters just talking to each other in a room. But you get kind of like extra fun, creative, which is maybe where the challenge is too, because they're not just talking to each other in the room, they're planning out what they're writing on the page, right? And so there's kind of this extra layer. We talked in the dialogue workshop just now about subtext, when we say something but we kind of mean something else, or maybe we mean something completely different. So there's already a little bit of that layer when we're talking to people, depending who we're talking to, but sometimes we can put that on, where you can really be saying stuff that is like for sure not how you're actually feeling or what's actually going on. A letter is almost like another layer to that, because you can put forward exactly how you want that person to be reading of you in the way that you might not be able to do in the moment, because we're not all so like quick-witted. So I guess I would encourage you in the letter writing to still think about like how can their voices be really distinct even in a letter, like how, just really to distinguish them from each other. But then also think about, because I think all good characters are flawed and have contradictions, we all are contradictory. So think about for each character, how do they want that person to see them based on what they're reading in the letter, versus like how they might actually differ from that, because that can be a fun tension to play with. I don't know if that is helpful or makes it harder for you, but if anyone else has thoughts on that.
Yeah, I just think you need to remember, dialogue is different than conversation. Dialogue, I'm not a fan. I don't use much dialogue. I always will go from a perspective, I like what you're doing. It's dialogue and adjectives are the two things that writers overuse. They don't know how to control them, and they end up getting themselves in trouble more often than not. So half the times when you look at a conversation that takes place, especially at a pinnacle moment in someone's life, most authors, make 2 or 3 pages or whatever. In the real world, it's only 3 sentences. And so, if you can streamline things, and then also vary it a little bit, so like the letters, if some can be shorter, some can be longer, whatever, but, once again, I think it's a myth. You don't always have to sure, but, you know, a little bit.
I just want to say something quickly. It does my heart good to know that you're writing a book or a story that does letters back and forth to each other, because letters are a dying art, and that's amazing. And that time period, also amazing. And I think that, I'll just tell you, recently I was going through some stuff that belonged to my father, who my father was in World War II. He wrote so many letters back to his parents. I mean, so many letters. And it was a way to communicate. It's a way, for him, that was a sort of form of journaling, probably. I just think it's a fascinating art form. I love reading books that are letters back and forth, so I just want to say, I'd love to read what you're doing.
Brenda, how about you in terms of storytelling?
I would just say, because you're looking at a particular time frame, to do some research about that time frame and how people spoke then, because it would be very different from how we do now. So maybe watch some really awesome 1940s black and white movies, or you know, your librarian also can help you find some information that would be helpful.
Thank you for your question. Any other questions? Yes.
Do any of you have any advice on how to make your readers really think about the words that you're using?
The question is, help me if I say this correctly, does anybody have any suggestions about how to make readers really believe what you're writing?
Not believe, but question if there's a deeper meaning in what you're trying to say.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have you start again with your poetry. Have you had some feedback from people about deeper meanings in your work?
I think the secret is for me not to care about you. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's just true. If you're really going to like me or like what I'm saying, you can like me or you can dislike me. You're probably going to pay even closer attention. But what I am going to do is I'm going to be me. You know, I'm always going to be me. I don't, you know, and the thing that's nice about bringing us up here is we all have completely different approaches. We're not right or wrong, we just have different voices. Me, I've never done a second of research in my life, because I write about what I know. I write about what I'm good at, and I write about what I can sign off as truthful. Because I tell you, right now, my life is more exciting than anyone's imagination. And yours is too. If you really believe in yourself and you're confident in yourself, you know, just write who you are. And then, because anything else, people can say, I'm not sure I'm buying this. But if you're sincere, people, you know, they'll smell it a million miles away.
Yeah, I agree with that, actually. You know, write for yourself. I think somebody was talking about that earlier too. But you know, you want somebody to think about your words in that they might see part of themselves in your story. A lot of, you know, what I do, it's nonfiction. You know, it's reported work. A lot of personal essays too. I edit those, and that's always been my sort of mantra with this work. Is I want a story where somebody sees something about themselves in it. Doesn't have to be a big revelation. It could be something small. It could just be a tone or a mood or something. So I think you can trust your reader, and they will engage in the way that is the best for them.
So Brenda, in terms of telling your personal story, how is it that it can come across as authentic? Does the writer think about the audience, or is the writer coming more from their point of view?
Well, I think that it can be both. So first and foremost, I agree, like you want to write your true self and your true story. And how do you do that? How do you get out of your way of, you know, if you are thinking about who's going to read this, that might automatically stunt your writing because you're worried about your potential audience. Or maybe you have someone very specific in mind as your audience, as your reader. I would say first and foremost, write for yourself. Don't worry about the writer or the reader. Do some of these exercises that we did where you just follow your train of thought, because your mind will take you places that you maybe even aren't sure of. Or will take you surprising places if you don't worry about editing or thinking about, you know, the right way to do it initially. What was the second part of that? The audience and, being authentic.
Right.
Yeah, so write your true story first and just pose some questions to yourself, write down, see what comes out. You might be surprised. You might find things that you didn't even know about yourself just by letting yourself write. And then you can always worry about the reader later, is what I would say.
So how does that apply to screenwriting, Lillie, and dialogue?
Well, I would say for screenwriting or prose writing, like, so you're talking about the sitting down to write. If you're in like draft 15 and you're trying to really craft something out of those early drafts, I'm not sure if this entirely is what you meant or not, but I'm thinking about, so my background is actually as a musician, and I think of writing very musically, and if there's a specific moment that you're kind of wondering, like, I want this word or this moment to hit a reader in a certain way, or if it's a screenplay, I want this moment in the story to hit a certain way. Like, contrast is your friend. Think about how you can make everything before that moment different, so that when we get there, it feels, oh, something changed here. There's no word like this one that has been used the whole time, and you can tell there's something different about it. Or think about, for story crafting, whether it's a personal narrative and you're crafting a story out of like a real life story, but you're crafting it for a reader, or in a screenplay and you're, you know, have a lot of dialogue and scenes that you're building a story world with. I like to think of the idea of arrival points, so knowing, like, ideally one major point in the work that's like, this is the moment you want everyone to cry when they read it, or this is the moment you want someone to laugh so hard, or like whatever it is. And then you might have, especially if it's a longer work, like if you're writing a novel or a feature screenplay, you might have a few moments that you're really kind of writing to, and then think about, just like in music, how you want to build up to that. And continue to escalate something so that those moments can feel really important and earned. I don't know if that fully answers the question, but my thoughts.
Did that answer your question? Other questions? Yes.
So, I know I am and like a couple other seniors are starting to write like our personal essays for college applications. Are there any things that like you guys see or write that are really good, and anything that we should avoid when telling a personal story?
In terms of writing essays for college, you're saying? Anything that include or things to avoid? Brenda, I'll start with you on that.
I'm a little bit stumped. I guess I'm not quite sure what to say specifically for college essays, if that's like a genre itself that colleges are looking for. I haven't quite gone down that road, but again, coming back to, I don't know.
Is that what you mean, writing an essay as a part of a college application?
Is it a personal narrative, Emily? I think so. You get like certain prompts, and they're mainly like something that happened to you, or like something you're excited about, but it has to be like from your experience. But is there anything that, like, if you're reading someone's personally essay and they're just like dragging on about something, or there's something that they did really well in like a writing way?
So knowing what your audience is, who your audience might be, is what to include, what not to include, how much personal exposition, and what a balancing act, I guess we're looking at, Brenda. In terms of self-disclosure, if you're trying to have a panel and read your things, and is this person a good applicant?
Yeah, I think someone else.
You go for it. Oh, okay. I was just going to say, I edit a lot of personal essays. Obviously, they're not trying to sell themselves, you know what I mean? But I always think that if somebody can lead with a really interesting anecdote, or really sort of setting the tone, doesn't have to be long, probably better if it's not long, just sort of to bring somebody right into your story. And then obviously you're going to be having to talk about yourself and your interests and what you hope for the future and that kind of thing. That, you know, maybe there was a moment when you were 8 years old that you thought, you know, I remember reading this book and I thought, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I mean, that's probably not what it is, but you know what I mean? Like, that draws the reader, and in this case, these are the decision makers, draws them in, and they think, I want to know more about this applicant. That's what I would think would be the goal. I want to know who they are, so show who you are. Show, not tell, right?
Yeah, I've done some work in the college essay counseling space, and I would say a couple things. First, and these are all hard because of course it's for an application and you want to get accepted, so you have a goal. But try not to write what you think they want to read, because that is going to be very apparent. Whoever's reading it, they're going to be reading so many essays, and everyone's going to be saying, I do all these activities, and I'm passionate about this, and I'm good at this thing, and like, you want to try, almost pretend like it's not a college application essay, because what they're really looking for is like, what is your unique personality, and you absolutely have one. Sometimes I think it's harder, like, we live in our bodies 24/7, so it is actually hard to know sometimes, like, who am I? What am I like? I don't know. Like, so sometimes it can be helpful to talk to other people, like, what are 3 adjectives you would use to describe me, and kind of get some, like, feedback on that, if it helps jog your memory. If that doesn't help, don't do that. But I think writing about something that will really show, like, something again, it depends on the prompt, there's all kinds of different prompts, but something that's like your unique, you know, thing that you genuinely want to say, not something you're saying because you think that that's the kind of thing that will get you into college, right? So it's being personal, and then what else was I going to say on that? I forgot. That was the main thing. I think just that authenticity. It's difficult because obviously there is like some pressure on it and you can't avoid that, but I would almost just try at least a couple drafts where you're not thinking about that. Just imagine you're like journaling for yourself and see, because they're looking for your ability to express yourself clearly. Like we were talking about, why should everyone learn how to write? Because communication is super important, and they're kind of looking like, can you communicate something clearly? Do you sound like a normal person who I could have a conversation with, right? So, I don't know, hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I've never been to college, but I've done all kinds of proposals. I've baked for world leaders. I've been in the Washington Post, in the New York Times, the Chicago Tribune. I've worked on different projects. And the one thing that transcends, nobody cares about what the people in power who are reading this. They don't care if you're talking about raising pet raccoons or if you have the cure to cancer. That's not what they're there for. They're there to find people who have confidence. And if there's 5 different people with confidence, they're going to find a person who can express their point of view with brevity. And because that's the trademark for people who typically succeed in these kind of ventures. Now, if we're talking art or being artistic, well, then you have free reign to do whatever you want. But I mean, at the end of the day, you have to really realize that the people who are making these decisions are making them, these are economically driven, and they're going to hope that you succeed, and they're going to hope that you do well, and they're going to hope that you come back and give money to the system. So, but I think that is just in any point in life. And I'll tell you this, for those of you who might say, well, that doesn't come easy to me. Even through elementary school, I had to go talk to like Kid Shrink and people like I didn't even know what I was doing, but because I was so quiet, borderline selective mute, but they put me through all these different speech classes and oral communications, things like that, that even this false confidence that I started to form kind of grew into the real thing. And once I found confidence and found my voice, good luck to you in your program.
Sorry, that reminded me of my other thing. Just adding to the confidence piece, in screenwriting, a huge part of that life is pitching. You have to be able to pitch, you pitch in publishing world too, but it's like a screenwriter, you're constantly pitching yourself, pitching your ideas, and you have to always have that confidence. Whether or not you really feel it, you have to go in with it. And that was the other thing I was going to say, of just, I teach screenwriting classes, and the first day of class for that class, we start by, okay, everyone introduce yourself, like, let's see who's in the class, and everyone says, I'm so-and-so, I live here, I do blah, blah, blah. Later in the class, I surprise them with a pitch yourself thing, and we do a mock TV writer's room where I play the fake showrunner, so I'm in charge, and they have to pretend that they're trying to get me to hire them for the job, and now they have to pitch themselves, like, why should I hire you to write on my TV show? What is so unique about you, and what is so interesting about your voice and your perspective that I need you on my show? And they have 2 minutes to prepare this surprise pitch. And everyone in that exercise tells so much more about themselves than they did at the beginning of class. And it does not come across as arrogant or bragging. They're just sharing specific things about themselves that they are good at or that they're interested in. And we all know each other way better after that. So that's another thing I would say is, like, don't be afraid to just, like, pitch yourself. Say, like, why are you amazing? Like, lead with that. So.
Couple of words that came to mind. Julie, you mentioned being authentic and telling a story, and Klecko, you mentioned brevity. Two powerful words. Are there word limits for the type of essay you're talking about? Are there so many words that you have to write? It's hard to write short. And Julie, I think, was alluding to showing, not telling. You can tell somebody I'm intellectually curious, but in an essay like you're talking about, how would you show that? What in your past would illustrate that you are intellectually curious? If that makes any sense. You had a question?
Yeah, I've been following my train of thought, and I've been going through the story too fast that I feel like I lack enough story to finish it. So I was wondering how it would be able to help with pacing and put more detail into it.
Say it again a little bit louder. What's your question?
How to help with pacing and put more detail into it.
I struggle with that sometimes. That's a really good question, and I've never heard anybody really articulate that. Yeah, because you get to the middle of something you're writing, you're like, oh, I think I'm done here, and no, you're not, and so I think that can be hard, because then I also think you as the writer, you know what's going on, what the idea is, and like, oh, I don't need to tell them whatever, but sometimes you do, or you overtell them. I think it's just the more you write, the better you get at it, and I think that's a skill that you develop. I think, yeah, that's a great question.
In the quickest way, I have an advantage over many writers because I'm a poet. I have to do in a poem what other people have to do in a novel. I have to tell a story, and it has to have a beginning, it has to have a body, and it has to have an end. And if it's going to be effective, it has to be just as strong in one page as 500. So one of the things that was helpful to me, like Stephen King, a lot of times Stephen King gets knocked because they said he never knows how to end his novels and they kind of just phase out or whatever. So I was talking to one of my writing mentors about that, and I said, so what's the secret? And I think to understand the ending of the story is, what you base everything else around. But he told me the ending of the story should always be in the middle. And I said, well, what does that mean? And he said, if you wait until the end of a project, people will get bored and they'll walk away. And if you make it, like this, and then like this, it's an effective way. But, that might not be your style, but whatever it is, you just got to figure out what your voice is. And that's the hardest thing as a writer, ever. And you won't do it in 10 years. If you're going to keep doing it, because you don't know who you are as humans yet, but you will. Probably when about the time you hit 30, you'll have a real strong understanding on who you're going to be. And then once you get that voice, then that's when you tamp down. But I mean, I wrote publications for free. I wrote articles. I submitted things. I mean, I've been writing every day of my life since I was a kid. But just keep doing that, and I think you're going to be okay.
I do travel writing, photography as a freelancer. Endings are hard, but I always try to end one paragraph before I think my reader wants me to. I like to try to have a little surprise. I'd rather them to think, oh, that was an interesting way to end it, rather than the proverbial picture of a shepherd's crook yanking somebody off the stage. I want to be done before they do that.
I know we did the reflection right in our exercise, and I would just encourage you, as you already are, to be curious about your writing. And like I was talking about, that middle, that sweet spot before you're going in and editing with a red pen or the digital equivalent, just read through and try and come to it with beginner's eyes, which is really hard when you've been involved in your own writing for a long time. But just set aside just a little bit of time and read part of it, and ask yourself the question as you're skimming your work. Where's the ending, or what would happen if I ended it here, or where do I need more details? Simply, one of the questions that you ask yourself. You can actually do a quick read and see with that question in mind, and you probably have the answers to that within if you just kind of be curious about your own writing.
Yeah, I guess I would add, if it's helpful or not, to really think, and back to that just question of like you're crafting a story, whether it's a true story or totally fictional or whatever, you're crafting that experience, to really think about conflict and change. So is your character, whether it's yourself in your own writing or a fictional character, like to kind of know what is the change from beginning to end, and have they achieved that change, and when is like the moment where it's like, aha, they are now a changed person, that's when we're done, right? We don't need any more of the story because mission accomplished. And then conflict, which should be happening on the way to, that's what's making the change, to again, maybe back to a musical analogy, but kind of building up to something. So really think of how much are you escalating that, and if you're hitting what, it sounds like maybe what you're describing in screenwriting, we call the second act slog, where you get into the middle and you're just like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And so thinking about like what's the conflict that's been introduced, how is your character handling that, and can you make it worse now? Like how can you make it even harder for them, and how can you make the obstacle even bigger? Not every story needs to follow that. Every story is different, and there's so many different kinds of genres and ways to approach story. But if that's helpful, I would think about that.
Jim, if I can just real quick add one more thing, and this is my publisher, by the way, and she'll attest to this, and I'm here to encourage you and tell you I hope it's a good thing, but if it's not, that's fine too. How many times have I had a book, I've finished books, and they've been ready to publish, and I threw them away, because not every book or every story is necessarily best representing my thoughts, my ideas. Nobody goes 100 for 100, and if they do, sometimes they're just gouging you as a consumer, but don't feel bad. Don't ever feel bad if you just say, I don't got this one, just get the next one. Jim?
Wait, can I say one more thing? One more thing. And you do this very well too. Read it out loud. Put it in front of you, read it out loud, and you're going to be able to hear how the language is flowing. You're going to be able to hear if you're bogged down, like you were talking about, if you're bogged down in something, you think, oh, get on with it. But to hear it out loud, even though people might not hear it out loud, eventually they're going to read it on the page. But that's something Klecko does too. I mean, if you read it out loud in your voice, that can be super helpful.
Just a little editorial comment. At your age, I remember myself, I would write something and give it to a friend and say, oh, that's really good. Well, no, it's not always really good. If you want an honest opinion, give your writing to somebody that's not impressed with your writing. It's better to have an honest appraisal, and it's not a personal thing. That's something else that had developed over the years. If an editor like Julie would say no to a particular project, which she has done several times with my proposals, it's not an indictment on me. It's that particular piece of writing at that particular time does not meet her editorial needs. So that's all it is. So there has to be a little emotional distance between, I put my heart and soul into this, and it's not going to go. Well, that happens sometimes. Good question. Other questions? All right, now I'm going to pull one from the sheet here. What is the first step to getting a manuscript published? Where do I go? Who do I send it to? Julie, I want to get you started on that, please.
Well, it depends on the publication. Nowadays, I think it's a lot easier because you can, a lot of editors will have email addresses, or they'll have like contact us, where you can fill in a pitch. Gone are the days where you would type them out and put them in the mail, and that's gone. Don't do that anymore. But I think that, but like Jim said, it depends on what kind of publication you're looking at. If you're looking at a magazine, if you're looking at a newspaper, editors have editorial plans. They have specific needs that you have no idea about. And so, yeah, I think probably the biggest thing is to develop kind of a thick skin about it. And it takes a long time. And sometimes you never really get one, because like Jim said, you'll think, wait, this is really good. Why doesn't somebody want it? It's just, it's not personal. What is it, the Godfather? It's a business number. It's like that. And so I think that just keep trying. Just believe in yourself and keep trying.
And this question is an interesting question, just because I'll bet you $1 million of the 5 of us, we're all going to have completely different ways of going about this process. Mine is completely different, I know, than most. I've never in my life done anything conventionally. I've never submitted to anything. I've never joined anything. What I try to do is I try to win the person of power. When I was in the New York Times, I didn't go to the New York Times. My publisher sent something, and it's against the rules. You're not allowed to do that. But it was really good, and I knew it was good because I pay attention to the publishers and what they're publishing. I know what they want, and if you can send it to anybody, but you want to pigeonhole what your project is. And I guarantee you, and she'll tell you, they call me, and that's the way to build the most effective relationship, is to learn who the decision makers are. It takes a little bit of extra time, but if you figure out who these people are, and you figure out what they like, find a way to make contact. And I've been doing that, not just literature is like shooting fish in a barrel. This is what I've done in the hospitality industry. So when you learn how to massage chefs and people like that, this is easy.
Okay. I remember being your age and asking questions like this and wanting to know, like, literally, what do you do? Who do you email? How do you get this done? And I would say, just like logistically, if you have a fantastic manuscript, which is the first step, but after that, going to writing conferences, meeting people. There's often at writing conferences, you can have meetings with agents, and a lot of it for book publishing. If you're going the traditional publishing route, there are lots of ways to publish a book. But if you're trying to go the traditional route, typically you need to get an agent first, and that's kind of the first thing you try to do. And if you go to a writing conference, there's often opportunities to meet agents and pitch your work. Again, you need to be able to pitch. And if it's like nonfiction, you can often sell on a book proposal, so you can have a really good idea and not necessarily write the whole thing yet. But all that being said, it does have to be a really good manuscript first, and it does take a really long time to get there. And if you do have like a meeting with an agent at a conference, or you are reaching out to a publisher directly because you know you have something they're going to be interested in, and whatever it is, that is your one shot for them to look at your work. And I've definitely sent pages to people before something was really good, and I was like, why did I do that? Because that agent is never going to want to read my writing again because I sent them work that wasn't ready yet. So that's the first thing, is to be really patient with the creative labor of it, and that really needs to come before everything else, because nothing else is going to work without that.
Persistence sometimes will out-trump talent. You have to be good at what you write, and you have to be authentic. But doing your research and spending a lot of time, like Danny said, and there's no substitute for doing your homework ahead of time. You don't want to waste an editor's time. If you want to submit something to the next avenue, for example, you have to know her audience, who's her readers, actually also who supports it, who's the advertising. The advertising kind of sometimes speaks to the maybe the income level and education level of the readers. You want to convince the editor that you know her readers? Yes, Taylor?
Oh, 5 minutes.
5 minutes, thank you. So, a lot of preparation, a lot of patience. Any last questions or comments here? Yes?
How do you go about portraying emotion? How do you go about portraying emotion?
Portraying emotion. Who'd like to start with that?
Okay.
It's like class. I'm terrified.
How do you portray emotion? Well, once again, it just depends on perspective. With me, so much of what I write comes from me because I know me and I understand me. As a poet, my mantra is simple. Always observe and always love. And I mean, if you just do those two things, the fish will jump into the boat. And so it's just really easy to just, once you realize what it is you're looking at, to just use your words to describe it. I mean, you could overthink this, forever, but it's just that simple.
Yeah, I think that that's a good question, because what an emotional topic to you as a writer, for example, if I read what you wrote, it might not hit me on any level that way. Or it might be the exact opposite, and my eyes are filled with tears at the end when you didn't intend that. So I think that it's again, the relationship between the writer and the reader, and it's a highly personal and intimate relationship. I don't care what you're writing. You're writing for the New York Times, I mean, if something strikes you, it strikes you. So as the writer, you can't control that, but you can do your best to convey the story that you want to tell, the words that you want to use, and then leave it up to the reader again to make it their own.
Well, Brenda, I'm kind of curious, in your experience, you mentor people and encourage them in how to tell their story, story by story. Emotion is a big part of that. When you're writing about your past and emotional things, do you have suggestions for people about use words like emotional distance at all, or involvement? How does it go if you talk about trauma in your life? It's important to communicate that.
Yeah, I mean, you can't write anything without having emotion, right? Like, even otherwise it's going to be incredibly dry facts. So I'm curious, did you have a particular type of writing in mind? Are you talking about, like, you're creating characters that you, okay. Well, and if yourself is a character, I can answer that too, but I would say, I'm sorry, I've had very little sleep the last days, but so I am drawing a blank only mentally. But to get at emotion for your own stories, or if you're trying to tell, show emotion of a character that you're writing, what's going on? I think you have to ask yourself that question. Just to get to specifically about showing emotion in characters, if you have a character that you are trying to show that they're sad, for instance, well, what kinds of things make you sad, and how can you show that in the circumstance at hand? Not just, telling the reader that this person is sad. So I would say mine your own life, right? And that will help make it authentic too. When you get sad, kinds of things do you do, or what makes you sad? How do you react? Just come, oh, sorry.
You can finish your thought, yeah.
So, again, just asking yourself questions and putting yourself in that situation and, trying to tell that story in just a little chunk. Put yourself in that situation, whether it's imagined or your real life, and write it down and see what comes up. I hope that's helpful.
So I want to thank you. You got a great audience, and good luck with
Good luck with all your writing. Let's have a round of applause for the panelists. We'll be
I'll be
closing
reading your
in 5
stuff